YouTube channel. I am Rahul Tyagi, and in today's video, we will talk about the three important functions in PowerApps. The first is the patch, the second is update, and the third is the UpdateIf function. In this video, we will create a patch functionality and look how it works. We will also create an update functionality and see how it works too. And at the end, we will compare this with the UpdateIf functions. So let's get started. So just to show you the functionality of all three functions, what I have done, I have created a SharePoint list with three columns: ID, name, and work experience. So ID column is mandatory and name is also mandatory. So I will be using this SharePoint list and I will update the records in this SharePoint list by using patch, update, and update if. So let's move to the patch functionality first. So this is the basic syntax for using the patch function. So what patch says, where is the data source, what is the base record, and what is the change record. So we say, go to the collection, this is the record that I want to update as a base, and there are the changes that I want to apply to these records. So let's take an example and understand patch function in more detail. So suppose I have a SharePoint list in which I need to update the record number 5 work experience to 3 years. So what I will do, I will write the patch function. In patch function, the first parameter is the data source, and in my case, my data source is candidate list, that is a SharePoint candidate list. And the second parameter that I need to pass is the base record. So actually I need to find the which record I need to update. So in my case, I will be using the lookup column and lookup function, and I will pass candidate list to that lookup function, and I will pass the record that needs to be updated. So in my case, it's record number 5. So I will pass this record dot id is equal to 5. And the third parameter in patch function is the change record, the record that needs to be updated. So I need to update my work experience from 1 to 3. So I will write work x then 3. So and I will execute this function. So let's see the outcome for this function. So this is the final outcome for the patch function that we executed. So as we need to update the record number 5 work experience to from 1 to 3. So work experience has been updated to 3. So good part of patch function is that you need not to pass all the properties here, as I need to update only the workx property. So I have only passed the workx property here instead of providing all other properties. So this is all about the patch function and how it works. So let's talk about the update function in more detail. So let's talk about the update function and let's compare the difference in the syntax of update and patch. So in update function, the first thing is the data source. So it is asking for data source, which is just like a patch function. The second parameter is the old record. Old record is similar to the base record that we need to that we also need in the patch function. And the third is the new record. And but in patch we basically required the change record. So this is something that we need to think. So update basically claims uh, that we delete the existing record. So to give us a new record to replace that is with whatever that is already there. So let's understand this by taking one scenario. So let's understand the update function in more detail by taking a scenario. The scenario is say I have a SharePoint list with name candidate list and I need to update record number 5 work experience to 5. So I will write update function. First thing is the data source. My data source is candidate list, then comma, then old record. In old record I have passed lookup candidate list comma this dot record id is equal to 5, the record that I need to update. And then I have passed the new record. New record means the record that I need to update. So I need to update work experience from 5 to 8. So I have passed work x 8. But when I tried and executed this function, it has given me an error. So let's check like what is the error. The error is that name is also required. So, but I can understand I have taken name as a mandatory field when I have created the SharePoint list, but I am not updating the name here. So let me update the name property also over here and check uh, is it working fine or not. So it was asking for name, and now what I have done, I have updated the name in my function. So I passed name as Netara, and the work experience is already 8. So let me try and execute, like, is it working fine now or not? I tried and executed this function and it is still giving me error. Now this time it is telling me for the ID that I need to I pass the ID to. So let me update the ID and check is it working fine or not. Although this was not the same case in case of patch function, I have only passed the work experience and it updated me the work experience for that particular record, and it has not asked for the name and other required parameters. So let me update the ID and check is it working fine or not. I tried and updated the ID column 2 in the same function and passed ID as 5, and I tried and executed it again, and again it is giving me error. And this time the error is the specified column is generated by the server and can't be specified. Now I am frustrated. I was happy with the patch. So from this, I realized that in case you are using collections or tables that are not controlled by the server, then update works perfectly fine. But in case you are using a data source as SharePoint list or Dataverse, that then patch work perfectly fine in these scenarios. So let's talk about the another function that is UpdateIf. So let's understand how UpdateIf function works. So let's first talk about the syntax of UpdateIf function. So in UpdateIf function, there are three parameters that we need to pass. The first is the data source. So data source is the data source that contains the record that you want to modify. The second is the conditions. So it's basically a formula that evaluates to true for the record or the record that you want to modify. And the last parameter is the change records. So a change record of a new property value is to be applied to data source records that meet the condition is created for each corresponding condition. The property value of existing records can be used in the property formula if you provide the record inline using curly braces. So let's understand this in more detail. So let's take the same scenario wherein we have a SharePoint list and I need to update the record number 5 work experience from 5 to 8. But this time I will be using the UpdateIf function. So in UpdateIf function, first of all, I will pass the data source. So my data source is candidate list. So I pass the candidate list as a data source. Then I need to pass the condition. So my current condition is that for the record 5. So I will pass this record dot id is equal to 5. So as you have seen, while using the update and patch function, we need to use the lookup for getting this ID. So in this case, we need not to use any lookup. So this record dot id is equal to 5. So after this, I need to pass the uh, field name like for which I need to update. So work experience needs to be updated from 5 to 8. So I have passed work X as 8. I tried and executed this function and let's see what are the results. So we try to update the Nitara's experience from 5 to 8, and as you can see, it has updated Nitara's experience from 5 to 8. So it worked. So let's take another scenario and use updateIf function. So let's take another example, and in this example, we will basically try and avoid the static values. So earlier, if you remember, I was passing 8 as a hard code value in the experience. So this time I have updated it to work X plus 1. So it will basically update the record number 5 work experience to plus 1. I tried and executed this, and this also works perfectly fine. It updated the Nitara's experience from 8 to 9. So my final conclusion is update if has everything. Update if really do what you want. You don't need patch, you don't need update function. Thank you. So thank you for watching this video, and in case you really like this video, do like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel that is Rahul M365. Thank you once again.